I'm just going to simply invite you to enjoy this experience.
My name is old Bess. Oh, don't think you, sir. He's a kind sir. Yes, he making sure I don't fall off nothing. Well, my name is Old Bess. And that's not old because of old age, sir. Stop looking at me like that. They call me Old Bess because I've been with my master Sucker, oh Lord, for years now. And I'm the oldest one of the ones that have been there with him, such like that. And so that's why they call me Old Bess. Oh, let me take my ease right now. Oh, the troubles to get here, the troubles to get here. Oh, wow. Well, I come from Williamsburg, Virginia. And I know y'all folk here in this western part of Virginia think that you are going to give yourselves another name. I heard y'all done tried out the word Tennessee for folks. Don't know where that came from, but anyhow, you just Virginians, don't you forget it. You just Virginians that live a lot further west than the rest of us Virginians. Don't you forget where you're from. That's all I'm trying to tell you. I live in Williamsburg, Virginia, and this here year 1776. What is the year 1776 for me? And this here year 1776, you well know that Williamsburg is the capital of the colony of Virginia. It is the largest colony. It is the most wealthy colony. It is the most people colony. And it is the most British colony. Or at least it was. But we are at war. Here out west you will not be saved from where we are. We are at war. Do not be fooled by those who say peace, peace, for there is no peace. We are at war with our mother country. I dare say we are no more than young'uns. Young'uns that have decided that we will throw up our hands and arms and scream and yell and demand independence. And just like a young child, we will be slapped down. For we are with the greatest military, fighting against the greatest military in the world. Yes, people talk about the French, they talk about the Spanish, but people do not talk about the British. They whisper it with hopes that they will never look their way to fight against them. Yet here we are. We are in dire straits, young ones, and you all know who we are. Yes, we are in dire straits. This is war. I ask you, some of you look at me and I see the look on some of one of this man here, I'm certain has visited the tavern here more than once, yes. He looks like the type of man that comes to my tavern, at the Raleigh Tavern, and says, oh yes, indeed, we will have our freedom and be independent. I see young men like you, full of vim and vinegar. And then I look at them and I simply think in my mind, for I would not speak out loud, so have you seen our Navy? And you would say yes. And I would say, sir, we have no Navy. And we are going to go up against the finest Navy in all of the world? Foolishness, that is what these young ones are saying these days, yes. Yes, and we are intending to do what we are. But there has been trouble since, oh Lord, 63, I expect. Yeah. 63, yes. That's when they put the tax on the stamps. Y'all remember that, don't you? I know some of you babies don't remember, but some of you old folk and such like that, you remember. I know you remember, sir. Just smile about it. Oh, he ain't smiling because he remembered what it was about. You remember they had that stamp that they put on every single kind of paper there was. Every single kind of paper there was. And a little stamp that said you had to pay a little bit more for that thing. Mm-hmm. Man, you know in Virginia we were highly upset about that. Because the stamp went on top of playing cards. Mm-hmm. And you know as well as I do that Virginians are about many things. And one of those things is they believe in dancing and gambling. And that includes card playing. If you're a good Anglican, you are making sure you play cards on Saturday evening before you get up early on Sunday to preach about it and confess on Sunday. Yes, indeed. And so they had, even on the playing cards, they had stamps on top of them cards. Piece of paper to write your love, my dear. Write your love. Had a stamp beside it. Everything, the newspaper. Can you believe a newspaper? To learn about the goings on in the day. And here in Virginia, at Williamsburg, we have 3 newspapers. I know out west y'all ain't got nothing. Probably most of y'all can't even read, but that's all right. I can't do a whole lot of reading myself. I hunt and peck as it is, but my children, they went to the grade school for Negroes. Quite proud of that, if I must say. And so they learned to read real well in sense. So they get a chance to tell me, and I learned some of the words that they have. But on your newspapers, gentlemen, you had a stamp. And folks was upset. That's right. Well, they protested and oh, they didn't want to buy anything with the stamp. And they was, oh Lord, it was just terrible. I know all these things because I work at a tavern. And you know, when gentlemen get upset about things, you know where they go. They go to a tavern. Mm-hmm. And once they get 2, 3, 4 inside of them, well, they got a lot to say. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, but wouldn't you know that they turned that stamp tax around? Well, you all know, you's a parent, man. You know that you don't give in to your child, don't you? You know better than that. You don't allow your child to win. You know that, young man, sitting beside your mama. You know your mama shouldn't let you win at nothing. Because if you win once, you're going to try again. And sure enough, here we are. Trying again, find our own way to get our freedom, as they say, independence, as they claim, and yeah, that is what they are about. So, times have become dire. Last year, 75, oh no, what was the year before? The year before, it was 73. Some of y'all, I get my dates all wrong. You know, I was an older woman. It's not an old woman, sir. I was an older woman, and you know, that's what happens with people sometimes. But 73. That was the year of the Boston incident. Mm-hmm. Yes, with the T and such. Some of these men called Sons of Liberty dress their face up looking like Indians and such. Now that ain't right. If you're going to try something and do something wrong, put your own face on. Don't put nobody else's face on. Put your own face on. And so they was over there and dressed up like anything. They took those bricks of tea and threw them in the water right there in Massachusetts Bay. Now they don't play no cards in Massachusetts, and they don't do no dancing in Massachusetts. They so cold up there, all they got is time to throw things in the water and such. And so they went on and they threw the bricks up in the water. They said you could dip down your cup. I ain't telling you to do this now, not the Massachusetts Bay. But dip down your cup. You could have a full cup of East Indian tea right there. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't you know, then our folks over in Virginia went over to Yorktown and did the same thing. They ain't got no good common sense about nothing. Well, that's what started all the trouble again. Started all the trouble again. They was upset about this. And then England got upset, and then they just made sure no ships were coming in and out, and folks was dying. Old folks couldn't get medicine, food. Awful, awful. Even in Yorktown had a small little blockade there for a while. Then last year, in '74, well, that's when Governor Dunmore, he's the English appointed governor in charge of each of the colonies and such. The Governor Dunmore was the appointed colonist, governor and such. And Governor Dunmore, well, he raided the magazine of its weapons and its weapons and gunpowder. Y'all are not as highly impressed as I was about that. I heard one person whistling on that, but y'all need to be more impressed, because what if it had been your gunpowder that was supposed to take care of your town here? What if it had been your gunpowder? And not only that, they blamed it on the slaves. Oh, I need to understand. I didn't even make sure you knew. And that's what I'd be. I'd be a slave. The laws say, you got to know the law of Virginia. If you don't know nothing else, you got to know the law. The laws say if your mama a slave, you a slave. If your mama free, you was free. If your mama indentured servant, you was an indentured servant. So what was my mama? Slave. And what were my children? Slave. If my son should happen to marry a free woman, what would his children be? Indeed, that'd be what the laws say. The laws say a lot about those they call slaves. The law also say that a slave is to be considered and adjudged. Considered and adjudged as property. Ain't no different than the spectacles you got on your face, son. The spectacles might be yours, they're your property. You can take them spectacles and you can loan them out to somebody. Take them spectacles, you can sell them to somebody. Take them spectacles and you can throw them on the ground. You can beat them spectacles in the dust, because it's your property. Ain't no different. Ain't no different with someone they call a slave like me. Loan us out where they want. Sell us when they want. Harm us, kill us when they want. Because we's their property. But indeed, Governor Dunmore left with the ammunition and all the guns and such like that. It was a horrible day. And then that thing happened over in Concord in Lexington. You heard about the battles there? Yes. Well, I know most of y'all here probably more old than they're going to need and such in the war, but some of y'all young folk, yes, they're going to be taking you. They're going to put you right in the militia. And you will be the one that may give of your very life. Indeed. And you ladies, it will be your husbands, your sons, your brothers, your uncles, your loves. They will be called to war. And war against the finest military on earth. Well, all the gentlemen done gathered around. They were kicked out of the House of Burgesses where they always meet. They're kicked out by the governor. And you know when men get all upset, because somebody come up into your house and say, you kicked out? You get upset about things, don't you? Don't you? And so those men came straight to the tavern, because when men get upset, you know where they go. Now, I was serving every one of them as they was talking about getting their freedom. Getting their freedom. But Lord knows I don't want to talk anymore about it. I come out this way with Mistress. She got a sister over here in this western part. She liked to visit her sister and her niece, and her niece has a baby. So when she comes to travel, she looks at me and says, Bess, why don't you come and be my personal maidservant? Do I look like a personal maidservant? I ain't dressing nobody on a regular basis. Why do I need to dress her? And nobody coming around and dressing me. But I said, yes, ma'am, that'll be fine. And then we have to get here. Lord, getting here over mountain and dale. And we had even a time that we was in a canoe. And over the wagons, boogity, 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 boogity. And all I had was my natural cushion. And such like that. At one point in time, Lord have mercy. One point in time I was sitting by this driver, and I know that driver ain't had a bath since the day he was born. And we got to one part, and there was a body of water there, and I said, boy, you need to stop this thing, get up in that water, and get on down there and wash yourself up. He did got in that water, and all the fish just died. But it smelled a whole lot better when he got back up beside me. I laugh a bit because it keeps me from thinking about home so much. I miss my family. Y'all want to hear a little bit about my family? Yeah. Oh, well, y'all's kind people. Yes, indeed. They're good Southern people here. Let's see. Start with my husband. His name is Caesar. He's a big man, yes he is. He's a good man. And he's a gardener for Master With. Master With lived down the road a piece right there in Williamsburg. And he's a gardener. He's in charge of all the gardens. He's in charge of the pretty gardens, you know, the ones that people walk by and go, oh, that's a pretty garden. That's all they say. That's what that's there for. And he's in charge of the cook's garden with sparrow grass and lettuce and radishes and such like that. He's in charge of that. And he's in charge of the herb garden. Y'all know about herbs? Now raise your hand and tell me an herb. Somebody in here tell me an herb. Parsley. Well, ma'am, we don't really use parsley as a herb. Most of the time we use that it's for its own properties. We have parsley soup, and we can stew parsley and such like that, and that's a fine thing. But yes, every now and then it's dried to do, but usually we use it in itself. Yes. Somebody else said something? A basil? That's a good one. I like basil. That's a good one. Ain't got nothing to say about that, but that basil is good. Yes. Somebody got another one? Rosemary? Did I hear rosemary? Rosemary, my Caesar says rosemary is grown in the actual place where Jesus set his feet. Yes, indeed, they say. And somebody said thyme, that's always good. And the folk always forget the thyme, that's what they do. But he does all the growing of the herbs. And quite not to go into if I must say myself. He and I, we've been together now, ooh, Lord, 41 years. Lord, have mercy, that man. We want to come together in a Bruton Parish church. You understand what the laws say? The laws say that slaves ain't allowed to get married. That's what the laws say. Because can your shirt marry your shirt? Can your cow marry your cow? I asked one time, can the dog marry a dog? And the boy looked at me and said, yes, ma'am. My dog picked another dog right good. I'm like, Lord have mercy, this child. But that's all right. But that's what, that's what the law says. I'm here to ask you, can you stop somebody from loving somebody? No, indeed. We find our own way. For us, we jump the broom together, the two of us. The broom would just be a large stick, and the men, they fashion it into a broom, and the ladies, they decorate it all up pretty. I didn't have no time for decorating. I work at a tavern, Lord have mercy. I said, just throw that thing in front of us, we good. And we had a guy with a pamphlet. He a slave, but he also a Baptist preacher. And he speak words over us. Then he put our hands together, and then all the people gathered around us, they count. And then the three, we jump over that broom. They ain't allowed to jump on the broom, because if you break the broom, you break your marriage. It's an awful thing. But it also is said that the one who jumped the highest is the one who rules the house. I was practicing for days. Days. But something happened to a man when he get ready to jump over that broom. And my Caesar jumped over that broom so high, it almost took him next week to come down. That's my Caesar. And we had 5 children. My Julius, my only boy. He left last year in October when Governor Dunmore leave and go on to a ship in the Chesapeake Bay near Norfolk. He put out a proclamation in November last year asking any that are slaves or indentured service to those who are patriots to come and fight for the English and they could get their freedom. We are determined ain't nobody going from our family. And then it was late October. Oh, no, it was early November. Early in the morning, we sat in the Raleigh Tavern kitchen. That's where the slaves stay. We stay in the loft upstairs. But we were sitting down at the table. Caesar and I and my son come in and he said, I'm going to fight for the British. And my husband stood, all 6 foot near 2 or 3 of him, and 300 near to 300 pounds of man. He stood up and said, boy, you won't do nothing I don't allow you to do. And my son, he was a wise man. He stepped back. And then he said, and how are you going to stop me? Yeah, you all know my son's about to die. He said, ooh, Lord. Before my husband could react in any way. My son said, you told us freedom means everything. And we did. He fought in the Battle of Great Bridge in Norfolk. He went off to war with his best friend, Benjamin, Flora's son. Flora's my best of friends. She's the cook. January, Benjamin come back by himself. He had smallpox. He said the last he seen my son, he was moving with the British towards New Jersey. I don't know whether he living or dead, but I know he's free. I know he's free. Then there's my daughter Roma, and she worked with the children, now with Mistress's grandchildren. And she done jumped the broom some 5 Octobers ago. Good young man, Paul. That's my daughter. She still stayed right where I is. Then there was Nera. Then there was the only baby I had die, that was Claudia. And now don't be concerned. I know most of y'all women understand that most of us ladies don't have no shit. They don't always have every child live. Many of us don't have a child gone. And it ain't something unusual for a woman to die while giving birth. That's why we need more midwives. It does. Some of you ladies need to be midwives. Here at Williamsburg, the men, the doctors of physics, they talking about them helping women have babies. But no man know how having no baby. But we buried her in an Afrique way. She only lived 2 weeks. We named her and sang over her and told her stories. And when we buried her, we moved my pallet away. We dug down, because I sleep on the floor of the kitchen now, because I was so sick. And we dug down and we laid her there after she had been wrapped. And we covered over that hole, moved my pallet back. Say in Afrique that when a baby dies, his soul gets up and starts to walk, looking for the one that loves it the most. My Claudia ain't got far to walk. And then there's Mary. She was a gift. I expect that's all I can say about the child. Lord, run her mouth, Lord. But she got a fine stitch and is now loaned out to the ladies that with helping with the gowns and such. Right, young lady. Right. I do wrong if I don't speak a little about my Mira. Mira was my middle child. She didn't have nothing special like my other children. She didn't help with the horses like Julius and wasn't good with the children like my Roma and like my youngest, my Mary. She didn't have a good stitch, but she was a kind-hearted child, a smile instant on her face, listened quite well. She loved to hear stories. I loved to tell. It was 3 Septembers ago. It was a Saturday, like today. And as beautiful as it is outside, it was that. Except without the heat. There's the heat. It was just right, the weather was. And on that day, we would have an auction on the steps of the Raleigh Tavern. We often have auctions. We have times where we sell bookcases and chairs and tables. We sell tracts of land and livestock and people. But we had never sold any of my people before. On that day, we was to sell my Mira. Master had told me early in the week that he was going to sell it. And I looked at him and I said, "Sir, why I need you to sell my daughter?" And he said, "I don't need it anymore. It was my daughter." So on that day, as I served people that had gathered there, as I served, I watched as they put my daughter in a slave pen, like a pig pen or hog pen. I watched as they went over to inspect her. Women and men, they made her take off her mouth cap and ran their fingers through her hair to see if she had lice or if her hair had come out easy from disease. They took their hands and they went all down the front of her, touching where they may, and all up the back of her. One man, he told her to open her mouth. Then he put his finger in, inspect. And he pulled her lip, and then he announced, as he had her lip in his hand, he announced to all, "She looked to be of good stock." Like she was a horse or a cow. I watched as they put her on the steps of the Raleigh Tavern, I watched as they bid on my daughter, as if my daughter had a price. I watched her daddy come. He had his hat pulled down over his eyes so nobody could see him cry, but I could see him. Because he could do nothing. He cried because he could do nothing. And a daddy's supposed to take care of their little girls, aren't they? She was sold to a man that lived in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I know that don't mean much to y'all at all. But it'd be a full day's ride in a wagon. It means she won't gonna be come back for the gatherings we have on Saturdays and Sundays. It means when she leaves, she not coming back. That night, her new master, he stayed at the tavern, and we provided for him with excellence as we always do. We made sure that his bed, the ropes were tight so he didn't fall to the floor. We made sure that his chamber pot was clean. We made sure that tansy was over his bedstead so that he would have no mosquitoes or bugs around him. We provided for him with excellence. And then, after we had dimmed all the lanterns in the evening, it was time for us to go back to the kitchen. I sat down, and my daughter, she climbed on my lap like she was a little girl. Like a little girl. And she said, "Mama, can't you fix this? Mama, are you going to forget me? Mama, how am I going to live?" And I wrapped my arms around my daughter, and I held her and I said, "I can't fix this one, baby. And I'm always going to remember you. I'm always going to love you." And then I took her head in my hands and I made her look at me in the eye, and I said, "How are you going to live? You're going to live. You're going to set your face forward. You're going to be excellent. And you're not going to turn around and look back." She left the next morning on the wagon. Her brother had pulled around. It was her brother that helped her into that wagon. It was her brother that whispered the last words into her ears. And then I watched the wagon. My daughter faced forward. And she didn't look back. And for so long, I was just sad. I was just sad. But I'm not sad anymore. I am angry. I am angry. I am angry at these men who come to my tavern and they scream and they yell about freedom and liberty and independence. And every single one of them owns a slave. Not once, Not once as I have served them at the table there. Not once have they turned to me and said, Bess, how it be to be a slave? Not once. Master Henry stood in the green room of the Raleigh Tavern as I was there, as the men, the personal men servants, lined the wall. And he stood and he said, we will not be slaves to England. Slaves. Did they look at their own men standing against the wall? And these I have known as good men whose names you should remember. Master George Washington, Master George Wythe, Master George Mason, Master James Madison, Master Thomas Jefferson, Master Patrick Henry, Master Richard Henry Lee, Master Francis Lightfoot Lee, Master Edmund Pendleton, Master Peyton Randolph, God rest his soul. Good men. And not one of them, not one has looked to free anyone but themselves. And I know we will lose this war. It's the greatest fighting force in the world. But if by some hand of God's providence, if God by his very hand decides that we shall win, would even then they remember me and those like me? Would they remember freedom for all people or hoard it for themselves? Would they remember that the work I do with excellence? I do with excellence. That I too have helped this colony. You who are Virginians, just further west, I have helped this colony. So many of us have. But will they remember? I do not know. And I do not trust them. I'm so sorry. I've been on the road a little too long. I miss home. I wonder what they are doing at the Burgess. They have gone back to the House of Burgess now that the governor is gone. And I wonder what they are doing there now. Probably writing up some important words of freedom and independence. All while getting the pen from the slave that hands it to them. Oh, my apologies. I tend to talk a bit. But I do have time for questions if you might have any time to answer. If you'd like to ask a question or two, I'd be most pleased to do such. It would be my honor to give that, you all being so far from the proper things over here in this western part. Might you have any inquiries of me? I heard you talking before I come in, so I know y'all can talk. Yes, ma'am.
Have you seen Mira since
I
she left?
I have not seen Mira since she left, but I have heard of her. Well, you see, oftentimes, many times, most of the time, as enslaved folk forget we around. We're supposed to make sure folk forget we around. That's why we try to be invisible but available. So we hear everything y'all say. And so it is that, ma'am, I hear about her. When somebody comes up this way from Fredericksburg, I ask of them and they give me knowledge of her. But I have not seen her. Nor, she is not a maid servant, so I do not expect I shall ever see her again. Unless freedom come our way. Other inquiries? Yes.
I'm incredibly moved by your story.
Mm.
The slaves that volunteered with the British Army, did they really get their freedom, and what happened to those that survived the war?
Well, I do not know if we are still at war, so I do not know if they will get their freedom, but it is my hope. Governor Dunmore has been a man of his word, even if it is the wrong word sometimes, but he has been a man of his word, so I would suspect that he will find a way for them to have their freedom. She asked if those that went to go fight for the British, have they gotten their freedom, and I do not know such yet, but I would suspect that they would. But I do know this, those that have the smallpox, they send back. They send them back. They will not get their freedom. And they will deal with what punishment is to be served to them by their master, or they will die. Indeed. There'll be another inquiry. Right there? Yes.
You said your children went to school.
Yes.
How many children and how many years did they allow them to go to school?
Oh, well, and when the Brave School began, and she asked if my children went to school, how long did they go? Well, the Brave School was started over in England. And then Master Brave put a good bit of money aside to start Brave schools here in the colonies. There's one in Charleston, South Carolina. There's one in Princetown in New Jersey, and one in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and then of course in Williamsburg. I do believe there may be one in New York, but I am not certain about that. The New York, they are mostly loyalists. We don't worry about them. And so, but those are the folk, there are grade schools in each of those places. And the master chose to have my children. My son did not attend, it was not there when he was younger, but all my girls did, of course, except Claudia. They all did attend and learn their reading and their writing and their ciphering. Yes, indeed. Fine bit of it as well. And you understand now why it would be advantageous. You do understand that, right? Well, you are worth a lot more if you are educated. You can read things, receipts that are there. You can read, the recipes the women they have and other things. So it is well worth their time to make sure we are educated. Yes. And it is for slave and free. Yes. The Brave School. I hope there will never be a time that the people cannot have the opportunity to learn to read and write. That would be most awful for a group of folk. Do you not think so? Yes. Well, final question. Yes, ma'am. Can I write her a letter? Oh, the good woman. She asked if I could write her a letter. I do have some writing skills. They are not pretty. Nor do I think that anyone would want to plow through to be able to understand that there were actual words underneath what I had written. But I do not know if but that is a fine idea. I could have someone else write. But I will tell you, it is much easier and cheaper just to tell somebody, go tell my daughter this when you go see her again. It is far easier. There may be 3 or 4 people's mouths and ears it has to go to, but it'll get there. You don't know what that's like around here, right? Yeah, use a small town. All you need is one ear and mouth, and then you just pass everything on, And some of y'all look for the right person, depending on how much you want it passed around. You just, pick the right person. You're like, I'll go tell them, because they'll get everybody knows you. It'll just be a few hours, everybody will know, and such like that. I know there's some of y'all around like that. Yes. Well, you all have been mighty kind. I want to thank you for listening so well. All I ask is remember me. Remember those like me. Remember we have brought excellence here as well. And this These colonies are as much ours as anyone else. Do we not deserve a freedom? Do we not? Good day to you, good people. Good day. Okay. How much time do I have?
It is 12:18.
12:18, so I got a few moments. Good day everybody. My name is Sheila Arnold, and I'm a professional storyteller and performer, and it is a delight to have brought you Old Bess. I hope you enjoyed meeting her today. Old Bess, oh, please clap for her. Right there. My mother always would laugh at me that she said, you talk about her as in third person. You do know you are her, right? Old Bess. Old Bess is a composite. That means she's a mixture of several different women. And she's a mixture of the women that worked at the Raleigh Tavern from the years 1763 to 1781. So little bits of each of their lives. And so the stories around her are true stories. And they also come from the book To Be a Slave by Julius, woof. The name is gone for just a moment. It'll come back. I can feel it in my, Somebody said it? Okay. Yeah, Julius Lester. Thank you so much. Like, it's gone, it's what happens to. Okay, so Julius Lester. And so the stories have been mixed together, but the stories are about true things that happened to the people there. Also received the information from various primary source documents, including the Virginia Gazette in Williamsburg, Virginia. Virginia Gazette in Williamsburg, Virginia, at the time of the war, had 3 newspapers, and they were all called the Virginia Gazette. And you identified them by their printer. I mean, it's just so much easier to say, you know, so you would just say whatever the printer's name that you wanted and such, and that's the Virginia Gazette you received. So they had a listing, they have many listings of what was sold on the steps of the Raleigh Tavern. We also have, as well as runaway ads from the Raleigh Tavern. We also use tithable lists, or I use tithable lists, which are tax lists that go to the church. So every other year you had to write a tax list, and that listed all your property, which meant also it listed slaves. That's right, the enslaved people were there. Sometimes with their name and their age, and sometimes what they do and such like that, so so that we could see it. And then the last thing I used was estate sales. So after someone dies, you have to pay off your debt, you have to have everything added up, looked at, and from that, that is sold, and you get your debt paid off. And of course, that is a list of property, which includes the list of enslaved people that are there. And so the reason I love sharing her story is one, because I think it, particularly this year, but every year, is that it's a reminder that that when we discuss slavery, when we discuss enslaved people, it is not just African American history. It is American history. It is all of our history. It may make us feel uncomfortable. And if you felt a little uncomfortable in here today, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with feeling, because that helps us to not forget and to remind ourselves of what we had taken away from a group of people. And that we're still having to work our way to make everybody in our country equal. Everybody. To have the opportunity for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then I also want people to not see, to look at the enslaved people, and you'll notice out of character I use the word enslaved. And that is a more proper way when you're talking to someone now. Because a person that is a slave, we can kind of almost forget that they're an actual person. Because that's what the name is supposed to invoke. That it's not a person, that it's a piece of property. That's what that word is meant to invoke. So when we say enslaved, we understand that that's what somebody else put on somebody else. Somebody put that on a person. Does that make sense? Okay? Teach y'all all these real proper ways and stuff like that. You're gonna walk out here and go, I was told how to be politically correct. No, you're just being told how to be kind. That's all. Just add things that will add to how we communicate with one another in a way that's wonderful. And sometimes we assume that people know these things. And I don't make that assumption. And if you already do it, you can go, girl, I'll learn that for you. Look, but the enslaved people, I don't want us to see them as victims. Oh, they were victimized. There's no doubt. But they were survivors. They were survivors. They were human. I mean, I want you to think about this group of people. They were told they were not allowed to get married, and they found their own way. They knew their children could be sold, and they had them anyway. They could have not done anything that would be left behind, no legacy, and yet we have a legacy in this country from those who were enslaved. Buildings built like the Capitol, like the White House. Built out of a swamp, honey. That was a swamp. It's still a swamp now, but it's a swamp. It's not a swamp. And that goes on both sides now. That's so funny. It's like, and both sides laugh about that now. But it was a swamp back then, and a real one, and they dug out of that this White House. So whenever you see the White House, whenever you see the White House, I want you to imagine the enslaved people that helped build that from the ground up. Imagine their ghosts around that building. There's things that we eat very differently. We eat differently. We like fried foods. Blame that on enslaved people, because they brought that oil over that we like to use. You know, if you like watermelon, that came from Africa. It did not come from here. Peppers that came from Latin America to Africa to here. If we were still European, we'd be eating lots of boiled things. Corned beef. Lots of boiled things. And so we eat different. We even have parts of our wording and our music. So much of our music has the background of those who were enslaved here. They are part of our country, as mixes with all those who come. All those who come with a part of something else to blend into the quilt that looks really ugly on the back of it. And it's supposed to look ugly on the back because it takes work. It takes work for us to connect to one another. But when we work together, we can create something that is extraordinary. Extraordinary. So let us remember that. And then last, I talk about this because slavery still exists in this world. We call it human trafficking now. We take the sting out of it a little bit when we take it away from saying slavery. Using people's bodies and their labor with nothing given in return. That is still in our country to this day and around the world. So I think I have just a few moments. I may not have taken the whole 18 minutes. I will say, you asked a question about, I think you asked a question over here to the side, about those who went to go fight for the British. Did they get their freedom? Yes, they did. They did receive their freedom. So much so, there's a book called the Black Book. It's a huge book. It's actually online. You can see it. And it is the names. They recorded the names of each of the people that had their freedom, what boat they were put on so they could go to a place of freedom. Newfoundland, Canada, parts of the Caribbean, and some over to Africa. So that is a real thing. So that's really cool that they kept their promise. Amen. The Americans, however, they had some work to do, didn't they? Amen. Any other questions anybody has for me? Yes, back in the back.
The part of the story about burying the deceased child in the kitchen floor. Did things like that truly happen?
Yes, they did. That is why it's in the story. It's exciting. Actually, we had a proof of this in a area that was in the 18th century that was around a tobacco area, and they dug down and they found they had found a body in this area, and they checked out, and it was the home and it was the home of the enslaved people in that area, and there was a body that was near. And so you're just looking at the home. Don't think of it as kitchen. Think of it as a home, okay? It just happens to be the kitchen, which is their home, okay? So that's the one important part of that. And they found this, and they found it dug, and there was a lot of questions. You know, what are they called? Those people that dig and,
Archaeologists.
Archaeologists, yes, we're like, but they have this little thing that they send out, basically a listserv. Hey, has anybody ever heard anything like this? And yes, they had. Because in other parts of the country, there was this digging down, they would find these bodies. And then they found notes and records that there were enslaved people that did not want to leave particular homes because they were leaving behind those that had died young. And they didn't want to go to new places because of that. So yes, it is definitely something that has happened. That one actually did not happen in Williamsburg as far as we know, but I pulled it because it was the same time period and pulled it in. It's a beautiful recognition of that carry over from Africa here, and we know that it happened. Yes? How common is the Alex Haley experience that the enslaved people passed down their oral experience? Is that what you're saying? Actually not very common at all. In many cases, there were African Americans that didn't want to even look at being talked about slavery because it felt very shameful. It felt like, you know, what did we do? Why did we let that happen to us? And, you know, let's not talk about that part. And people were made to feel guilty. You know, the use of the word slave is made to make a person be at a particular level. Does that make sense? So if you have a slave in your background, you don't want to talk about that. So it was very unusual. I mean, now when Alex Haley came around, everybody looked up their past. It was wonderful. People were like looking at, all my family was like looking up. But at that time, just like y'all, just like everybody here, we looked up our past, and for a while there, everybody was related to a king or queen. You just go back, and you know what happens, you know, be like, oh, wait, we got Scottish blood, we got, you know, Scottish chieftains in our past. Nobody admits to being a pirate. Nobody admits to being a pirate or a thief, or, you know, they all got good histories. And the same thing happened with African Americans when they were first doing these things. They all seem to come back as related to some kind of king or queen. But over time, people have really begun to look more deeply and underneath that and see what it is. But it's still hard to talk about in the African American culture because of the stigma that is put on it. And it's hard to share oftentimes with those in the white culture just because it feels like, are they beating me up? Are they making me feel guilty? I feel uncomfortable. I don't have a problem with you feeling uncomfortable. As a matter of fact, I'm grateful for that. Understand this. When they sold a child away from a family, or a parent away from a child, they did not let the people cry. Because if you cried, you were what? Human. So they were not allowed. So when you cry tears, I'm grateful that you're crying for those who could not cry without dire consequences. It's okay to feel a little uncomfortable and to recognize we got work to do still to make us all comfortable together. Amen. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here today.